In the hospital in Ahmedabad, the lone survivor who walked away from Thursday's Air India disaster tells Indian TV he has no idea why he's the only one of 242 who got out alive. Emergency door is broken, my seat is broken, I'm not jumping. Okay, I just walk out in it. It was meant to be a normal flight, but just 30 seconds after takeoff, it became the deadliest crash in a decade. How does a high-tech Boeing 787 suddenly fall from the sky and slam into a hostel? Why didn't the wings lift? Did someone press the wrong button? Was it a system failure or a deadly mistake in the cockpit? As experts dig deeper, more disturbing questions are popping up. Could this happen again? A Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner flying under Air India Flight AI-171 lifted off from Ahmedabad Sirdaar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport, heading toward London Gatwick. But just half a minute later, it dropped and slammed into the hostel of a medical college in the Machaniga area. The impact was massive, 274 lives lost, including 241 people from the flight and 33 on the ground. Only one passenger out of 242 on board survived. What's left everyone stunned is not just the scale of the crash, but what investigators uncovered afterward. The aircraft, known for its excellent safety history, had flown over 41,000 hours across 700 flights in just the last year. Powered by General Electric Aerospace GEnx engines and marked VT&B, it was 11 years old and had carried 230 passengers and 12 crew members, including citizens from India, the UK, Portugal, and Canada. Everything appeared normal at first. CCTV showed the aircraft lifting smoothly from runway 23 at 1:39 p.m. But in just a few seconds, it began to struggle and couldn't rise beyond 625 feet, only 425 feet above the airport's elevation. People nearby noticed the wings weren't moving the way they should. A mayday call followed, and the pilot's voice reported a drop in thrust. Then, in just moments, the plane tilted upward, stalled in midair, and nosedived straight into the BJ Medical College hostel. A fireball erupted, with nearly 100 tons of jet fuel consuming the site. The wreckage was scattered over Megan. Smoke filled the air as locals rushed in to help, some using water buckets to fight the flames. Inside the hostel, the dining hall was destroyed. Students eating lunch didn't have time to escape. Burnt metal and scattered food were all that remained. For students, a pregnant woman, laborers, vendors, all among the 33 who died on the ground. And out of everyone on board, only one man in seat 11A survived. He was sitting by an emergency exit in the economy section, and though badly injured, he managed to crawl out through a gap on the left side after feeling the collapse. His brother, also on the plane, did not survive. Investigators reached the site quickly and found both the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder on the hostel's rooftop the next day. The data from these devices was sent for deep analysis. One early finding has raised major concerns, the possibility that the co-pilot mistakenly pulled in the flaps instead of the landing gear during takeoff. These flaps help lift the plane when it's moving slowly. If they're pulled in too soon, the plane can lose lift and stall. This matches what's seen in crash footage. The landing gear was still out. The captain had more than 8,000 flying hours, and both pilots had solid experience. But the entire crash unfolded in under a minute, giving them almost no time to respond. The Boeing 787 has a built-in alert system to warn pilots about incorrect flap settings during takeoff. If it was working, did the pilots miss the warning? Or did something fail inside the system? Maintenance records now add more concerns. Just a month before the crash, the flap system on the left wing was repaired, but the follow-up checks were delayed due to a parts shortage. This delay might have affected how the flaps performed or were detected by the aircraft's assistants. The flap-slap mechanism on the 787 works with torque motors and sensors to keep everything in sync. If those parts gave the wrong readings, the pilots might have been flying blind during those crucial seconds. Everything investigators are finding is making this case even more disturbing. Something in the maintenance records didn't sit right. Just a month before the crash, technicians had worked on the flap actuator on the plane's left wing. But what followed is now raising serious doubts, a week-long delay in the quality control checks caused by a shortage of spare parts. That one delay is now under the spotlight. Could it be that a simple mechanical glitch, maybe a flap set at the wrong angle or a sensor giving false readings, played a part in the disaster? The flap-slat system on the Boeing 787 isn't basic. It relies on two torque motors and a position encoder to function correctly. But if any part of that system wasn't tuned just right, the signal sent to the cockpit could have been completely off. And with aviation still recovering from supply chain issues since the pandemic, the delayed check might not be just a minor slip, it could be the piece that connects everything. The investigation is being led by India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, but the case has drawn in international experts from the US National Transportation Safety Board, the UK's Air Accidents Investigation Branch, Boeing, and GE Aerospace. According to global rules, the first findings must come out within 30 days, though the full report might not be ready for up to a year. The black boxes recovered from the wreckage in the hostel's rooftop will likely reveal the most chilling details: what the flap settings were, how much thrust the engines gave, whether autopilot was involved, and what, if any, warnings were shouted in the cockpit. Alarms like flaps, or stall may have gone off, but was anyone able to hear them in time? Investigators have already ruled out external causes. The weather was calm, skies were clear, and there was no sign of bird flocks on radar. The engines had no marks of bird impact. So the focus is now narrowed: something went wrong inside the aircraft or inside the cockpit. That uncertainty has triggered a global reaction. India's aviation regulator, the DGCA, quickly ordered inspections of all 34 787s in Air India's fleet. They're checking everything: takeoff configurations, fuel systems, and the performance of those GEnx engines. As of June 15, 9 of those planes had already been examined with no major issues found, but 24 were still waiting. Beginning June 15, the DGCA also made it mandatory to conduct special one-time checks on all 787-7 and 787-9 flights before departure. Even more in-depth engine power tests were scheduled 2 weeks later. And all of these emergency actions show how shaken the system has become. Investors also felt the shock. Boeing's stock plunged nearly 9% after the crash. The Dreamliner, once seen as the future of commercial flying with over 1,100 aircraft flying worldwide, is now being looked at differently. Known for its lightweight carbon fiber body, its smooth and quiet ride, and its fuel-saving design, the 787 had past problems too. In 2013 there were battery fires. Then manufacturing issues halted deliveries for long periods until 2022. In 2024, a whistleblower had raised alarms again, claiming that shortcuts in production had led to unusual stress on fuselage joints. Those warnings were largely brushed off, until now. The FAA is reopening those concerns, and this crash may change how the Dreamliner is judged. Meanwhile, GE Aerospace, responsible for the plane's engines, has sent its team to India to examine the data from the cockpit. No engine failure has been officially confirmed yet. But that Mayday call, thrust not achieved, has everyone on edge. Could a hidden software error in the electronic engine control system have kept the plane from getting full power? Or was the issue never with the engines at all, but instead caused by a misconfigured flap that made lift nearly impossible? These questions now drive the investigation deeper as experts look at every nut, wire, and signal. The human loss is almost too large to measure. By June 15, 270 bodies had been recovered, and by June 16, the death count was confirmed at 274. Only 76 bodies had been returned to families by that point, as many required detailed forensic testing, burned beyond recognition. DNA and dental records were being used to identify them. Among those confirmed dead was Vijay Rupani, the former Chief Minister of Gujarat. Whole families were gone: a British couple and their 3 children, a radiologist and his wife, a Canadian doctor, Dr. Narali Shurish Kumar Batel. These stories are endless. In response, the Tata Group, which owns Air India since 2022, announced compensation of 1 crore Indian rupees or $120,000 for every victim, including the 33 who died on the ground. The airline also retired the flight number AI-171 and replaced it with AI-59 beginning June 17. But repairing a name is not that easy. Even with all the upgrades and rebranding in recent years, Air India's reputation has taken a serious hit. Confidence in the Dreamliner has also dipped. Airlines operating the 787 are reporting a drop in passenger numbers between 5% and 10%. Fear doesn't fade easily when answers are still missing. The fallout after the crash started revealing problems that were bigger than anyone expected. Safety checks meant to catch even the smallest risks had missed some simple but important details. A recent audit found that routine tests for hydraulic fluid hadn't been done on time. There were also missing signatures where they should have been, suggesting that the work wasn't fully verified. This wasn't just about one plane, it pointed to habits forming across the system. Legal steps began taking shape soon after. Several law firms in Mumbai filed paperwork to begin class action lawsuits. The cases aren't just about the crash victims from India. There were passengers from Portugal and the UK too. But not every country's laws treat air crash victims equally. That's led to confusion and could stretch these legal battles for years. And these lawsuits may influence how compensation rules are written in future global disasters. In Ahmedabad, people are doing what they can to recover. The damaged building has been sealed off while engineers review the site. Plans are being made to build a quiet garden in place of the wreckage. Former students from the college have started raising money to support the families who were affected. Vigils are still being held in places like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and in London. Online posts with tags like #JusticeForAI171 continue to spread. People want answers. The tragedy reminded many of two older disasters. In 1996, a mid-air collision near Shori Dori killed 349 people. That event brought major changes to air traffic control. Then in 2019, a software error on an Ethiopian Airlines Boeing 737 MAX caused a crash that forced airlines across the world to ground the model. Investigators are now going over the AI-171 crash closely to decide if something similar must happen again. There are questions about whether the flap system or the flight control software needs a redesign to make sure pilots can't confuse one function for another. A timeline of the flight shows just how little time there was. At 1:25 p.m. pre-flight checks were done. At 1:30 p.m. the plane was pushed back. At 1:33 p.m. it was cleared to take off. By 1:38 p.m. a distress signal was sent. At 1:38 and 15 seconds p.m. the descent began. By 1:38 and 45 seconds p.m. it crashed. That's 45 seconds from first sign of trouble to impact. The black boxes, now in Delhi, hold every sound, setting, and sensor reading from those moments. The radar data shows that the plane's transponder stopped working at 625 feet after that. Ground staff rushed in, overwhelmed by the damage. Many of them had never seen anything like it. A website with updates was launched by the airline, and families were given a hotline to call. But confidence in flying dropped. Some travelers began cancelling bookings and turning to trains, even for long routes. Concerns about whether regulations were keeping enough distance from airlines also returned. People started asking if the close connections between airline companies and oversight bodies were making it harder to enforce rules. Past crashes were being brought back into conversation. Travel habits have started shifting in both cities and small towns. People are rethinking how they get around. Boeing and GE, the companies behind the plane and engines, are now being questioned. The engine model known as GEnx had a good reputation, but investigators aren't ruling anything out yet. Delays in repairs caused by part shortages are under review. There is also focus on whether the aircraft's warning systems missed something they were built to detect. Every update from the black box analysis could change what we know next. The crash showed just how thin the margin for error really is. In only a few seconds, everything failed. So what are your views on this? Was it just system failure or something else? Let us know about your views in the comment section below, and for more such amazing information and videos, do subscribe to our channel.